those lives transformed by the power of the gospel, from France all the way to Thailand. I was like, I want to do that my whole life.
Sometimes we take decisions because we think it's cool, or we think it's nice, or we think it's godly. But we actually haven't asked God, and we haven't waited until He answered.
Yeah.
Should I take this step? Or should I not take this step?
I prayed about it and told my parents that I'm not going to go to university. And they weren't too happy about that.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, whoop, whoop, whoop. But I said, Lord, if this is really what you want, you'll open the door. And
hello, everyone, and welcome again to the All Nations podcast. The last episode, there was Nate and Richard. I hope you enjoyed that. And Nate started the episode pretty cool, actually. And I decided to just copy him. You know, whatever is good, it has to be copied, mate. So welcome to the All Nations podcast. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, so we're here to equip and mobilize and inspire all nations, all generations for global mission. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
whoop, whoop. It's spreading like wildfire here. Today's episode, we're going to be looking at this great topic of hearing the voice of God and God's calling into His mission. And we have a bit of a different style today. As you might notice, we have 3 people.
Yeah.
No host.
No host. We're just going to have a bit of a conversation and see how things go.
Different generations, right, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, 2 Gen Zers and one baby boomer sitting over here.
Oh.
Did that hurt?
Yeah. Filipe doesn't even know what baby boomer is. But to kick things off, guys, I have a very serious question.
As he always does.
Oh, wow.
Always do. Do you ever talk to yourself?
Oh, gosh.
And when and why?
Constantly.
I've got a great one to share.
Okay.
So when I used to work, for a company in the UK doing taxi driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember I used to be because I used to get up like 3 a.m. to go out and pick someone up to go to the airport and that kind of stuff. Imagine you're going to bed sometimes 11 midnight and then waking up at 3 to pick someone up. So I was knackered. And every time, so never trusted your taxi drivers, guys. They're always going to be sleeping. Trust me, they always sleep outside in the morning. I remember that every time I would go up in the morning, and then as soon as I started to drive, I would be like really wanting to go to bed and sleep, man. But as soon as I stopped, I wouldn't want to go to bed. But anyway, as soon as I was driving, every time I'd be like, the guy would be at the back, probably sleeping because it was 3 a.m, and I'd be like, wake up, Filipe. I'll be smacking myself. I'll be a little bit. Yes, come on, man. You need to get it. It's only 20 minutes. It's only 20 minutes. So I did
Get it together.
So I've talked to myself so much times doing that. It's just funny.
Okay, so you slap yourself.
Talking to
I
yourself
slap
as a taxi
myself
driver.
As a
Okay.
taxi driver, never trust your taxi driver at 3 a.m. in the morning. You can look at him because he'll be slapping his face away.
Okay.
What about you, Mia?
Oh my
I
goodness.
do talk to myself. I think just to get things done, I like to have little conversations, little meetings with myself. That helps. I think everybody should. I think
What do you
Nate
say
does
to
too.
yourself, though?
Yeah.
I think whenever I need to do something, I count to 3. 1, 2, 3, and then I do it. And
No
then I get
ways.
up. Yeah,
Wasn't that like from a movie? I swear I saw that like in a movie somewhere.
probably. But I think it honestly works. Like when you have to do something, and then you're like procrastinating, I just talk to myself. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go, and then I go. Then it works. You should try it. We should all try.
Wow.
Is that how you end your showers? What?
Thank you, Nate.
Or is that how you get into a cold shower?
Oh yeah.
1, 2, 3.
That's how I actually get into the ocean. 1, 2, 3, and then you go.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's a good
Try
one.
it. Gotta try it.
What about you, Nate?
Maybe we should start the podcast like that from now. I do on the occasion speak to myself, generally when I'm doing tasks, but I have been known to speak in my sleep.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So I think that's a form of speaking to yourself. And
Like consistent conversations with yourself.
yeah, I mean, tends to be quite random. So the most recent one is fairly funny. I was in Denmark with one of my friends, and if you know anything about me, I'm a big fan of jazz. And according to my friend,
Oh, by the way,
yeah,
the intro of the podcast, you were the creator
that's
of that.
true.
intro.
That's true. So if you like jazz, then
Yeah, that's
I
Nate.
appreciate that
That's
one. I
Nate.
love it. So basically, he wakes up to me saying, jazz in my sleep, and then 5 seconds later going scatting in my sleep. So yeah, there we go.
That's you. That's Nate.
So you do talk to yourself.
Hello, yeah. Maybe we should get that checked out. But
Yeah.
So I think it's a common theme in every missionary life to talk to themselves.
Yeah.
that's
I
true.
think it's needed.
I think it would be great if we could each introduce each other very quickly, because a lot of people don't know who we are really, and we actually decided that everyone that's here in this group are the people behind the scenes and sort of helping to work and us to develop this podcast for All Nations. And I think it would be just good for people to know who we are actually, because a lot of people don't even know who we are or who are these guys just appearing in this new podcast of All Nations. So maybe Nate, you can introduce yourself very quickly.
Yeah, sure. My name's Nate. I'm 24 years old, 25 years old. Oh my goodness, we're my age. I'm from Cape Town, South Africa, and I've been at All Nations now for 2 years, and this will hopefully be my last year that I'll be going into this September. So.
Oh wow, that's cool. Mia.
I am Mia. I am from Madagascar. I grew up in South Africa, and then I lived in France for 9 years. So home would be France, but I then came to All Nations for 2 years. I have 1 year left, and maybe a third one, but that's still in progress. That's
Still
not
developing,
process.
still
It's still maturing in me. We'll see.
Mhm.
We'll see.
That's
We'll see.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Filipe. Married for 16 years now.
Jeepers.
I know you look 25.
Baby boomer.
I know you look 25, but I'm not. We've got 3 kids, and we actually just had a little baby a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Originally from Brazil, lived part of my life in the UK. I'm originally from Brazil. So yeah, and really happy to be here together for us to do this podcast and continue moving forward towards what we have been sensing God is calling us to do with this podcast, and I think it's, as I always say, it's going to be great.
It's gonna be great, and it's really it's really cool because we come from all different cultures. Like now, we actually have 3 different countries
very
and
diverse
cultures.
here.
So yeah,
That's
I'm
true.
excited for that.
Are you listening to any song, Nate?
Am I listening to a song?
Because you're like this.
Listening to the rhythm of your voice.
Oh wow, mate! He was done. Did you see?
Wow.
Bro, appreciate the move. Guys, do you think God speaks to us today? And if so, how?
As usual, ladies first.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a
Nice
gentleman.
save.
now,
Nice save.
well, now, ladies.
What a guy.
I think yes. I don't think. I believe yes. God does speak to us. First of all, through His Word and through the revelation of Jesus speaking to us through His Word, but also through the people that we're surrounded by. I think God allowed built the church, for each of us to encourage one another and just live as one body in Christ. I think that's something that, at least in my testimony, if I was able to ever grow in my faith, in my relationship with God, it was also thanks to the many people God has put in my path, helping me to grow and mature the calling God has put in my heart, mature my gifts and talents, mature my just my knowledge of God, and of course through Bible studies, through the Word of God as the foundation of all of that. So I do believe it.
Very cool. What about you, Filipe?
I definitely believe it. And actually, I think that God wants to speak with us every day.
Yeah.
We're just too busy to listen and too occupied to really stop.
Wow.
And actually, I mean, it's a good question there that you brought up, because I've been going through this phase in my life now, which is really trying to hear God. And sometimes it seems like He's not speaking at all, like I'm not hearing anything from Him.
Yeah.
But the reality is that He is speaking. I'm the one that's actually always too busy, and always my mind is so occupied with so many things that I'm just not there, you know. And even when I get up to pray, when I'm doing my devotional time, sometimes even within that moment I am not there. I'm there physically reading and doing it, but I'm not there. My heart's not there. My mind's not there. And that's where I think the challenge. That's where I think the challenge lays. Is to really, you have to be there and you have to want to listen. And another thing that I've been learning a lot as well is basically, when I pray,
but I
We
never
forget to
stop
listen.
Be
and
still.
just zip it and just listen.
Mm.
Wow.
So I believe that God does speak.
Yeah.
And I believe that He wants to speak with us every day, not just once in a while, but every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we just got to be ready. And
Yeah.
Amazing.
How about you?
Yeah, I 100% full-heartedly believe that God speaks. I mean, Hebrews 1 makes it clear that in the former days he spoke to us through the prophets, and now today he speaks to us through his one and only Son. Like, God speaks to us directly. I mean, I believe that through his word, first and foremost, and as like the primary source of like revelation, and then but I believe God uses the church. He uses his people. I think in my experience, I've experienced him speaking to me through people who aren't even believers and situations, and hear stories of, you know, Muslims coming to faith through dreams, and so yeah, I think it's clear that God is wanting to speak. But I think you raise a really good point there, Filipe, of God is always wanting to speak to us, and we're just a little bit too busy and too caught up in our own stuff to actually make time to hear. Like, how often do we actually just sit and say, "Speak, Lord," or just open the Word and, like, you know, really want to hear from God. But what do you like? How would we cultivate like a better culture of hearing from Him? What do you guys think?
I think it's intentionality, as you said. It's
a good point.
It's the same way that you want to connect with someone. It's the same way that we want to have and build this relationship with the people around us. And I think it's the same with God. The moment we disconnect with God is when we lose sight of what God is actually telling us, is when we start feeding ourselves with what the world is now telling us, and feeding ourselves with what that's not from God, actually. So I think intentionality, in even if it's hard, do it tired, do it busy, but do it. I think the 1, 2, 3, go, and then you do it. See, it helps. But yeah, I think it's intentionality into just, this is my priority, and everything will flow. Everything of my day will flow from that moment I spend with God, I think.
Do you know what I've been realizing in my own life again? I believe everyone goes through phases in their life, like a roller coaster. One day you're up there, then the next day you could be down there. And then to keep that, you know, real intentionality and engagement always, it's not easy. It's not easy. We all know that. It's not a fairy tale. It's this is the real deal. You know, when you wake up alone and you have to do it. One thing that I've realized that sort of helped a lot throughout my day is that before I used to get up, first thing I would do would be exercise. So I would exercise, get my blood pumping. But then I realized that when I finished my exercise, I'll be a bit energized on that, but my mind would already
be somewhere else.
I would come to that moment, I'll be somewhere else. So one of the things that I've started to put into practice within my own life is when I wake up in the morning, you know, I go straight to God. First thing, straight to Him. So and it takes me time to, you know, wake up but I leave my bedroom, leave where I am, the comfort zone, because if you just stay in your bed, probably you just go right to sleep. So I try to leave that comfort zone, and I try to go somewhere, or go outside, or go to the living room, and just kneel down or lay down, but really be somewhere else where I can really be intentional. I'm here, Lord. I want to hear from you, and I want to, you know, I really want to be with you right now. I really want to. And what I've noticed is that when I constantly do that, I see that my day changes.
You're refreshed. It's crazy.
It's like when Paul talks in Romans, when he talks about the
Romans 12, 1 or 2.
Romans 12, actually, he's my Bible.
That is Nate's
my Bible
gift.
teacher.
Like literally, he's a ChatGPT Bible. Like you could
and
tell him.
I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot of Bible verses during this time together.
I am excited.
And not just Bible verses,
so excited.
Quoted Bible.
I don't know about that.
For sure.
But yeah, when Paul talks about, you know, the renewal of your mind, you know, not conforming with the
patterns of the world,
but renewing your mind. And that moment, I've been learning from God that's the moment that I need to renew my mind. First thing in the morning.
Because then even when I go to exercise, my mind is already renewed. I'm already thinking about heavenly things. I'm already thinking about eternal things. I'm not focused just on, you know, earthly things. which probably if I get out, go for a run, my mind's everywhere at that moment. I'm thinking, I'm the mind's just all these different things coming into my head.
Yeah.
But as soon as I've engaged with God, I've connected there.
Yeah.
Everything just.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Lord, yes, I'm going to do this today. Yes, I got to do this, Lord. Yes, you want me to do that. So I'm thinking about all these things connected to God. So that's the way I think it. Practically.
Yeah.
We can.
Consistency and intentionality.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of, there's a verse that says, train your hearts, or train your...
Where is that one, Nate?
You gotta give me more
Anyway.
work with that.
I don't have the whole thing, but there's a word that the Bible uses where it says train your heart or your mind to actually walking with God. It's that training, that word training. It's like when you exercise, you train it, you discipline it, you actually intentionally tell it.
I think Paul put that.
It's 1 Corinthians 9:23.
There you go. Whoop, whoop.
They run the race as to win the award, right?
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
okay.
I think you need to train yourself to do that, and
Yeah.
even when it's uncomfortable, when it's cold, when it's hot, you still do it, and that builds in the consistency and the discipline and the relationship with God.
Yeah, I think what you said about making that your first thing to do in the morning, and setting the day right by getting in the Word, praying to God, and not making excuses. I'm the kind of person who wakes up and I'm like, I need a good hour before I'm alive, even before
I know that very well, mate.
before the
We saw that
podcast.
today.
It's looking fairly zombie-like.
You
but,
can ask him any Bible verse in the morning, forget it, he won't remember.
That's true. But something I've got in the habit of doing in more recent times is not just starting my day with God, but also ending my day. So day and night,
that's
meditating on His law,
Day and night.
as Joshua says. And it really just makes the whole difference. Your mind is set on heavenly things. It's set on who Christ is. And I think that's the only way to really get through day to day. I realize how weak I am. I realize how much I need Christ. And if I really believe that God is my strength and I need Him in every moment, then why would I not be throughout the whole day needing and coming to His strength, and instead of trying to operate on my own, So I think it's so good. So a small practice I've been doing is just the first thing I do is I tend to grab my phone, but I will open my Bible app to read the first of the day and just meditate on it and try to repeat it a few times and learn it. And then instead of opening my messages and getting all stressed or looking at emails or something, that's been a small thing that's helped me.
I've been doing the same thing, but I'm not getting my phone anymore.
Yeah, just whipping out the Bible.
I've decided to not touch my phone only after I've spent time with the Lord. So when I wake up, I don't even look at the phone. The alarm goes off, get out. Because as soon as I got my phone in my hands, things start popping up. The message came through the night, and you just engage. Suddenly you engage in something else. Some news comes in or whatever. So I think that I don't know. I think the phone thing is something that we need to be very careful with these days, because as soon as we got our phones in our hands, it just goes. Yeah. And I'm not saying that everyone's different, but basically it is a distraction though.
Yeah.
At least for me, it is a big distraction. As soon as I get it.
No, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Now let me just ask a question here about okay, so we talked a bit about how we've been. I want to hear probably practically, a bit more practically. We've shared stuff, but how or maybe when did we hear God? Maybe a story of when we heard God speak to us. Yeah. And how was it? Yeah. How did He actually speak? Did we hear a voice? Did someone come and say something, or was it just something happening internally? We know God speaks in so many different ways. I think that would be nice to hear from all of us.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. How I came to faith actually was through hearing God. So I think I'll just start there. And my experience of coming to faith was I didn't grow up in a Christian home. Throughout my whole life I didn't really believe in God, but some things happened, some things went wrong in my life, and I found myself in a really dark place. I was 17 years old and I get invited to go to this Christian camp. And my parents were going through some difficulties in their marriage, and on this camp on the second day, I was already like hearing all sorts of things. Like I for the first time read the Bible, and that had like this real drawing sense on me. I didn't know how to describe it. It just felt like something was like drawing me in, you know. And then on the second night, what really sealed the deal for me was this leader. He asked if he could pray for me, and he didn't know me, I didn't know him. I was just like, sure, man. And in his prayers, like, Lord, what do you want to say to Nate? And he just kept quiet for like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, is this how prayer works? Like, this guy isn't saying anything. Like, surely he's supposed to be saying something. But then afterwards, he just started praying, and he started praying about things so specific to my life, about my family, what I was experiencing in that time. And I was like, what? Like, this, like, it can't even be set up, because I've never even told anyone half the things that he was saying and praying into. So in that moment I was like, man, God is real, and I surrender my life.
He didn't even know you, right?
He didn't know me. I introduced myself to the first time, you know. So that was like the first time you could say I heard God's voice, and it was through like a person, you know.
And when you heard it, what was the feeling?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
What was happening right inside?
Well, in that moment it was like, you know, when in Mark 4, where Jesus is on in the storm with the disciples, and he just said, be still, and the storm was just like, boom. It was like that in my heart, you know. I had a storm raging, all sorts of anxiety, bitterness, depression, you know, and in that moment when God was speaking to me, it was just like, boom, nothing else mattered. Peace, love, joy, love that I've never experienced, and continued to experience that ever since that day, you know. But before that, had never experienced.
That's awesome, mate.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful, and I think it's only something that only you can experience. It's hard to explain it to someone. Like, this is what happens when you accept Jesus, but it's actually something that only you can experience with God yourself.
Yeah.
Like, hearing you, it's beautiful, but we are all Christians, but we all experience it differently, and that's the beauty of God. He's so personal. He's so personal.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What about you, Mia?
So I also didn't grow up in a Christian home, and I think I heard God by hearing the truth. So it wasn't anything specific. It wasn't hearing a voice, or it wasn't hearing like a huge trumpet coming down, or like something like that. But it was simply hearing the gospel. It was actually simply hearing that Jesus died on the cross for your sins. Jesus loves you. Jesus, he paid the price for you. And I think just hearing that through different people all the time, I think at some point that resounded in my heart. So how I came to faith was a cousin of mine, a family member actually, she reshared once again the gospel, the truth to my heart. And that truth just made sense. It made sense in my heart. And that's where I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, actually, I am a Christian. Yeah, I want to be a Christian, because this is the truth. I was convicted that was the truth, that Jesus is the truth. And so that's kind of how I started confessing, and then I just received the love and the overwhelming sense of peace and conviction from the Holy Spirit. And in Romans 10:9 or 9:10, it's when it says, confess with your mouth and you will be saved. I think it's something like that. And I think
upon the name of the Lord will be saved.
Exactly that. But that's actually what I did. I understood the conviction, and I said it. I said, Jesus is the truth. And that's the moment I invited him into my heart, and that's when my whole life kind of radically
turned upside down.
When I knew the truth that was found in Jesus, that was not near or close to any other good news that I've ever heard in my entire life. And that's something that transformed me inside and out.
Yeah. Wow.
That's amazing.
That's kind of my story.
I relate a lot to that sense of like conviction of this is the truth and I have to follow it. Like right after I was prayed for, I was also like, the guy shared the gospel with me and with the cost of being a disciple.
Yeah.
And he was like, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, this feeling of like, there's no other way. You know? I was like, Jesus is the truth. You have to follow it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I relate to that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But what about you, Filipe?
You know, I've got a lot of time that the Lord really spoke with me.
Did you actually grow up in a Christian home?
Yeah, that's what I was going to go into that right now.
But basically,
It fascinates me because you guys are so young. I mean, I'm not old. I'm young.
Baby boomer.
I'm young. But yeah, the thing is that you both are not Christians, and you came to faith. You didn't come from Christian families. I came from Christian. I was basically born. I wasn't born in the church. So I was born in this tiny, tiny town in Brazil called Urucânia. It's not Ukraine. It's Urucânia.
Urucânia.
Right?
In the north of Brazil? Or?
Yeah, it's in the southeast of Brazil.
Southeast.
So basically, there's about 10,000 people there in the village.
Wow.
Very tiny farm area. And I'm in London now, guys.
That's crazy.
It's funny when you think about it. You know, there's like the people who are born in my city. Normally, they would never leave.
Yeah.
They're going to be there for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But here we are. Urucânia is now in the UK, talking to the All Nations podcast. Anyway, but my story is very different. I was born in a Christian home. My parents were Christians. My dad was a pastor already. I'm leading a church in this small town. And then my father decided to, not him, the Lord called him to move out and to learn English, to go to India. And then basically, just because our masters are so different, it's touched on that a little bit. But when we came to the UK, I was about 2 years old, and I left when I was 10. So I stayed 8 years here in the UK. Went back to Brazil when I was 10, and then when I was 18, I came back here again. So I lived another 8 years in Brazil, and then came back here. And at 19, I was married with Jess already. And then once, when we and Jessica we were married already, we had the kids as Af was about 4, Bath was about 3 years old. And we were going through a very rough time in our life. And we were in Brazil. We had gone to Brazil for 1 year only, and then we came back to the UK. And then we came back like completely broken. And I remember there's a lot of things that God needed to work in me, sort of restoring me. And I was a bit sort of not ready. But my problem was I knew the gospel since a child, but I never accepted the gospel. So I always basically rejected it. It's even hard to say it. Wow. I can't say I rejected it, but
ignored it.
But when I look at it, I feel like I rejected it because I knew the truth. I grew up in that truth, but I still rejected my parents' faith.
Wow.
And I was never really wanting to engage with it until it came to certain touch points of my life where the Lord was always sort of there. And literally, like, I would feel him in a way, and I would know that feeling because I grew up in that, and I would hear him speak, and I would, and a lot of the times, different people would come. The way the Lord speaks with me a lot, like through His Word a lot, but also if people just coming up to me and just out of the blue, just saying something, and I'm like, where did this come from? It has to be God. But I remember once I was at our home church here, and basically, it was a rough time, and I was completely broken. And there was about 1,000 people, I think, at the church. It was having like this conference, and I was at the back, all the way at the back, and I was just praying and really trying to get some stuff out of my heart, and I was feeling like this. It was like getting a ball of tennis, putting it through your throat, and it gets stuck right here. That pressure on your chest. I would feel like just that pressure in my chest, like there's something that needs to come out. I remember this guy coming to me, and what you shared at the beginning when you said about this guy just stood there and he asked to pray for you, and he just stood there for 5 minutes. For me, it was the same.
Really?
He came to me, and it was me and Jessica. We were actually next to each other, and we were praying together. And then he just put his hands on me, and he said, "Can I pray for you?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And then put his hands, and then he stayed there for like. For me, it was like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Felt like an eternity.
Yeah. and I remember because I had my eyes closed, and I was all the time like looking at him, and he has his eyes closed just like that.
He didn't say anything.
No, just literally
he wasn't praying.
nothing. No, nothing. And I looked at Jessica, and I was like, "Well, this guy's praying." No, I'm just thinking in my head, this guy's not
Maybe
praying.
he just wants to feel the big biceps.
I don't know. But basically, I was just sitting there, and standing there, me and Jessica, and nothing. And I'd look at Jessica and look at him, and then, mate, suddenly it comes. And then he just went like, he said, "Look, And I remember I had a empty plastic cup. I was drinking some water and it was empty. I just drank the water and I was holding the cup in my hand. And he said to me, you know, like this empty cup is your life right now.
Oh,
Man.
wow.
And he just started to say stuff. And like it was just coming out and coming out and coming out what he was sharing. He basically told my whole life.
Wow.
Wow.
But at that moment, he said something. He said, look, but from today, the Lord is saying that he's filling up this cup.
Wow.
And he's going to fill it up. And it's not just going to be into the edge of the cup. It's going to overflow.
Wow.
And a lot of people are going to, you know, this overflowing of this cup will bless a lot of people.
Wow.
And the Lord's going to do that in your life. It's going to change. At that point, I wasn't thinking about mission at all. You know, I was starting to get back into, okay, I need to start seeking the Lord again. I need to start really being there with the Lord. That's where. And then this happened. And then that was a turning point of my life. That was about 9 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah. 8, 9 years ago now.
Wow.
And since then, I never turned back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And from that point, a couple of months later, the Lord started to talk to me about going to Bible college and preparing myself.
Wow.
And then, then I studied here for 3 years. Me and Jessica, the Lord equipped us and prepared us. Then we went out to the ship, Logos Hope, and then But basically, that's how I.
Wow. So
That's
it's
so
actually
amazing.
pretty radical.
Yeah.
It wasn't
it
just
was
like
crazy,
be
Wow.
Christian, but it's actually serve the Lord.
And then throughout that, I've had so many sort of these touch points with God, where it's so clear.
Wow.
So clear. I remember one that was we were in this big conference again, and I have this tendency of always sitting way at the back.
Yeah.
And there was this speaker speaking. Of course, he was speaking as a speaker.
Speaking. Plot twist.
But he was speaking, and then basically he stopped out of the blue, and he just said, "I just feel the Lord saying that we need to invite people under 30s, like from under 30s or until you're 30, and
Pray for them, because the Lord will be calling a lot of you to ministry. And who here feels called to ministry, please come forward." Then a lot of young guys went forward and all that stuff. I was 30 at that time, literally 30 years old at that time. That was 5 years ago. And I remember that when I was there was this couple in front of me. Jessica was taking care of the kids. She was having with the kids at this day at the conference, and I was alone. And then he invited these guys. He prayed for them, and the Lord gave some words of knowledge and stuff. And then he just stopped. I'd say it in English. He stopped on his tracks. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah.
And then he started to do something like this. And it seemed like he was looking for someone. And I had to sat down at that point because I felt I didn't even go forward. So I never went forward. I stayed because I thought, okay, I'm already studying Bible college. I'm ready to prepare. I know God called me to ministry and mission. And then this guy starts going like that. And it looks like he's looking for someone. Out of the blue, man. I remember my beard was big. It was a big one.
Big beard.
And then there was this couple right in front of me. There was no way he could even see me. And he stops. Conference about 1,000 people, and he goes and he points out and says, "There's a guy there, right there."
Wow.
In between that couple, and I was way at the back, and I thought, that's not me. And then we started to look around. So everyone's looking around to see who's the guy, right? And he says, "No, it's you right there. You with the big beard." So I looked. There was no one with the big beard.
It's
It's just
you.
me. So he said, "Yeah, you stand up." Just like that. So I stood up, and I was like, "Oh, here we go again. Lord, please don't confess my sins here." But basically, he just went and he said to me, "The Lord is calling these young people to ministry, and it's going to be all different stuff. But He has something very different for your life."
Wow.
And I was studying for mission and sort of looking into go to different places. And he said, and the way He's going to use you is going to be different than anyone in this room.
Wow.
Not in the sense of using me more, but in the sense of the ministry was going to be, and he used some words like tough, sacrifice, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was so like he hit it on the nail.
Wow.
With what God was already speaking with me and Jessica and all that. And I have to confess, I still don't know what it is.
Yeah. Wow.
It's been 5 years. I still don't know exactly what the Lord has been. I know it's mission. I know it's that involvement. And I'm still seeking that.
Yeah.
No, Lord, what is it? What is it? I still don't know what it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
But anyway, just
Wow.
share
That's
story.
an incredible story.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That personal God. Wow.
Filipe, you worked on board the Logos Hope.
I did.
With OM, and so did I. I remember you telling me a little bit about how you first heard God call you to go to the ship. I remember it being quite cool. Would you mind sharing a bit about that?
To go to the ship.
Yeah.
Okay.
How you confirmed it was the ship.
So are you guys hosting me now? But it is a cool story. So we were studying, me and Jessica, and we had felt that we needed 3 years of study to prepare ourselves. We had a lot of stuff to deal with as well. So we took the first year to really focus on sort of transitioning to this. It was the first time that we stepped out in faith to live a life of faith, which means no money.
Yeah.
This is no money.
Life of faith
Yeah.
equals.
Life of faith, no money. And it was for the first time we lived that, and we thought, okay, let's take 1 year of transitioning. Then we came to the college, we did it 1 year. And the second year we said, okay, second year we start seeking God to see what the Lord has for us and where does He want us to go and all of that. And then sort of start looking to organizations to work with and all that. And the third year would be the last year to prepare ourselves to go. On the second year, I was already set in my heart. I'm not going to say much in terms of that, but I was already set in my heart because, I don't want to share that because it's quite confidential, some stuff. But I was set where I wanted to go and how and where the Lord was calling us into work with what.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, Jessica came suddenly, was a bit concerned with what I was feeling from God.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, when you're married, it's different, right? When you're young and single, it's just you, the Lord calls you, you go, then you don't have to consult anyone else, the Lord told you. But I've got family, I've got a wife, and I've got kids, and I have to always consult them. Is this something really from God? Because if it is, He has to speak to my wife as well. And also has to speak to my kids. And now they're becoming 2 teenagers as well, so they have to become, they're part of this. I have to know that God's speaking with them so they understand why we're doing it. And but at that point, a guy came here to the college, and he was basically, we were at church, and we were praying. This was way before I came to college. We were at our church, and then we decided to meet with the pastor of the church, and then someone prayed for us on that day. One of the pastors prayed for us. That was way before we came to All Nations, way before anything that I just shared here. And this person prayed, and they said, "Oh, I see this vision," and she could literally see it. The pastor was praying; she could see this vision. Like she was looking at it. It was crazy when you think about it. And she said, "I see this ship. It's a huge ship, and it's people coming in. There are people coming into the ship. They're sick, they're depressed, they've got all sorts of problems. And when they leave this ship, they're restored. They leave with joy. They leave with peace." And at that point, when she shared it, she even said, "I don't know if this is metaphorical, or literal."
Wow.
And then she even said, "I don't know if this is the way God's going to use your lives as a ship. People coming to you and you're going to be working with them, that sort of thing, or if you're actually going to a ship."
Wow.
Oh wow.
2 years and 2.5 years after that was when we were at this stage that I shared in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then basically we were here at the college already thinking about something. We never heard about any ship. We've never heard about any ship ministry. We literally never heard about it. And then a guy came from the ship, my good friend Flavio de Lima. He came. And then we were in a friend's house who was part of this ship, which they worked together, Flavio and this friend of ours. And then basically we were having a little nibble in the evening and just having a chat. And then Flavio started to share about the ship. But the funny thing was, he used the same words as the woman used 2.5 years prior.
Wow.
Wow.
And then at that point, Jessica she just went, "Filipe, it's the ship." And I was like, "What ship, Jessica?" the ship that the lady prayed about. I said, nah, you're going too far now. You're just bringing stuff. And she was like, it is that ship. I'm sure it is. And she was convicted.
Oh, wow.
In her heart, it's the ship. The Lord calls to the ship.
Wow.
And I thought, no way.
Did you not want to go to the ship? Is that why?
No, I hate ships. Have you lived in a ship, Mia?
No, I don't want to.
It is.
That's rough.
I'm scared to say that.
Honestly.
No way.
But the ministry is beautiful. But my problem was the sickness.
Oh.
Motion sickness too
Motion
much.
sickness, yeah.
But yeah, that was the story. And
Wow.
basically, what ended up happening is that we prepared in the year and a half, and then we went to the ship.
Wow.
And we worked on the Logos Hope ship for 2 years, which was an awesome time.
Wow.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're thinking about going into ministry, Logos Hope is a great place to start. It is. It is awesome. It's an awesome ministry. I mean, that's where I met Nate.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably was the unfortunate part.
The lowest moment.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. He's a great guy.
But we actually worked together there as well.
Yeah,
we did.
yeah.
We did.
I hear a lot about the ship.
Yeah.
Most of the
All
people
your
here
friends from the ship.
All my
No,
friends are
Mia,
from the
I
ship.
think you're gonna go.
Yeah, prophet.
No. I will see. Maybe one day. Maybe.
But that was is a
That's
story that's that was an impactful story actually.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was really crazy to see that happening, and we actually went
Yeah.
to the ship,
It's
and
crazy,
and
right?
that's exactly what the ship does. The sort of ministry the ship does. People come in,
Yeah.
and we're there to minister in their lives, and it's just so cool when you see these. So God is real. He is speaking,
Yeah.
and He
Yeah.
is sort of putting us into places and directing us when we allow Him to do that.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know.
When you obey, because
Yeah.
clearly you don't want to go.
No. Wow.
Yeah.
But it was really
amazing.
awesome.
How did you get into the ship?
Oh, great question. So it's a bit of a story, but I'll keep it short. When I was 18, so it's just a year after I became a Christian, very fresh into like what it means to follow Christ. I just believed the gospel, and I believed God could do anything He wanted to do. And my friend was inviting me and telling me about this mission trip, and he had gone a couple of times, and he says like, oh, God does amazing things, like God heals people, God brings people to salvation through the gospel, and I was just like getting so excited. And so I went, and it was just the most incredible experience of my Christian life up to that point. It was the first time where I was really active in sharing my faith, active in praying for people, praying for healing. And I saw God do amazing things. I saw God heal people. I saw God save people. And it was on the, I think, second or third day, there was just this moment where we were walking. I just felt like we'd just seen God do something really big, and heal someone and bring salvation to a family. And I had this moment while we were walking. It just felt like time stopped, and I was like in slow motion, and everyone's continuing to walk. But that's how it felt. It probably wasn't exactly like that, but I felt like the sense of like God saying, "This is what I've called you to do." In that moment, I was like,
so again, hearing from God there in that.
Yeah, it was like
interrupted you.
boom.
Like,
It was like,
yeah.
and there's so much peace and so much just like, this is it. This is what I'm called to do. And so after that moment, I decided to explore that calling. My church that I was going to at the time invited me to do a discipleship year, and so I prayed about it and told my parents I'm not going to go to university, and they weren't too happy about that.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, whoop, whoop, whoop. But I said, Lord, if this is really what you want, you'll open the door. And after a couple of months of talking, they were like, okay, we support you fully. And that was amazing because they're not Christians, they don't understand. But I'm just going to get barely paid to do a year of my life to be working for a church, doing youth and kids ministry. And throughout that whole year, my whole intention was to like confirm if this is like for my whole life, if I'm called to full-time ministry. And pretty early on, like 3-4 months in, like I would always ask prayer about this, and many people would even pray for me, and in their prayers they would say like, I feel like God is calling you to full-time ministry, and I didn't even ask. So I was like, I came to my pastor 6 months into my 1 year, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to Bible college to study to become a pastor, because that's what I thought being called to ministry was, to be a pastor. And he was like very wise. I mean, I love my pastor. He's an incredible guy. And he was like,
"You're not ready yet."
Basically, yeah. He was like, Nate,
no.
you know, I see it. No, he was very encouraging. He was like, I really see that calling in your life, but I think you should go be a missionary first.
Oh.
And I was like, that's not what I wanted to hear, you know. I was like kind of disappointed.
Give
so
me
like,
the pulpit, mate. I want to be in that stage.
Yeah. Give me the glory. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I looked for a year, like for stuff for a year, for a 6-month trip. I was looking at YWAM. I was looking at, you know, what I could do. I was filling in this form, like I was literally filling in my form for YWAM DTS in Muizenberg in my city, and I felt like God say, stop, like you haven't even prayed about this. And I was like, okay, but I've like filled in 19 pages of documents. You could have told me that earlier, you know. But
at that point, it's interesting that you just said, mate, because you know sometimes the Lord, He still lets you go in your own
my own way.
Even though in that He's going to stop you.
Yeah.
I just find that so interesting.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you think, Lord, why do you do that? Why do you just
tell me?
Yeah. From the beginning, man, just make it clear. I'm just
But
kidding.
maybe, you know, I don't know. But maybe it was because you didn't, like you just said, you didn't pray, didn't ask Him.
Yeah.
You know, just a quick one. I want you to continue that way, just so I don't lose the thought. Because I was this week reading the book of Exodus, right? I think Exodus chapter 32. And then basically Moses meets with the Lord and all that. And then when he meets with the Lord says to him, I'm not going to go with the people.
Yeah.
You go alone and you go with them. And then Moses basically says to him, if you don't go and your presence is not with me, I will not go.
Yeah.
And take my name out of the book. And he really says that this coolest interaction with God.
And at that point, it's literally what you just saying there. You know, we never. Sometimes we take decisions because we think it's cool, or we think it's nice, or we think it's godly. But we actually haven't asked God, and we haven't waited until He answered.
Yeah.
Should I take this step, or should I not take this step?
Yeah. Exactly.
You know? And it was one of my prayers throughout these couple of weeks now has been, Lord, you know, is your presence going with me?
Yeah.
Because if it's not, pull me out of this.
Like interrupt me
Exactly.
and come intervene now.
I just had to say it because you went straight into a point.
True. No, I mean, thank you for doing
That's
that.
really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was completely true. Like I was being busy for God in a sense of instead of like really seeking what God wanted me to do. You know, like I had this presumption of what I assumed God wanted me to do, and that's what I thought I was following. But really, I wasn't seeking His face in that. So yeah, I started to pray, and I felt God say, call one of my mentors, Shane, and he's a missionary for many years, and so I called him, and he was like, he at the time worked for a mission organization, but he didn't recommend his own, which is interesting, and he explained many years later that there was some problems going on, so that's why at the time he didn't. But he said, have you heard of OM? And I was like, nope, never heard of OM. So he put me in contact with some lady from his church, which was like maybe 10-15 kilometers away, and we were meeting, and we had a call, and I was like, there's a lot of options, and I was like, I'm not too sure exactly what, but I'll postpone this for now because I'm going on another mission trip. It's like a year after that other one I was telling you about. And this couple from my church who are elders at the time, were giving me a lift. So I was like, cool, I'm ready for this mission trip. And we get in the car and we start talking. I didn't really know much about them, and they were like, so I was like, ask them, what do you do? And they're like, oh, we work for OM. I was like, what? It's like, yeah, we're mobilizers for OM. I was like, so funny story. I'm looking to join OM, and they were like, that's so cool, what are you thinking? I was like, I was telling them a little bit about what I was thinking. It was like just a 6-month little mission trip, and they're like, nah, you have to join the ship.
Oh wow.
And I was like, okay, tell me more about the ship. Yeah, it's 2 years commitment minimum, and you need to do a 6-month training before that. And I was like, yeah, it's definitely too much time, you know, I can't do this, blah blah blah. And they're like, that's the only option, we're giving you this option, but pray about it. So I did the mission trip, and on the mission trip again, that's what I realized. This is where I felt my calling from God was in mission. Like, why am I like getting all confused about His call when, you know, I remember how God called me, and so I felt, you know, I could do this every day of my life. So what's 2.5 years? And so, yeah, I packed my bags and joined Logos Hope about 3 months after that. Well, joined MDT and then Logos Hope. But yeah,
That's cool, mate.
yeah,
Wow.
that's the story.
Mate, it's crazy because you see throughout this whole journey, you got those touch points where the Lord's always there,
Confirmed.
confirming
Yeah.
or convicting or saying that, you know, that's not the way. I want you here, you know. But you have to be listening. You have to be.
Yeah,
being
That's when
ready
you have to be still sometimes and
Yeah.
just listen
exactly.
to God. That's really cool.
It's been an awesome chat, hasn't it? Been
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
What about you, Mia?
So
Right, wait a minute. I want to ask a question to you.
Go.
How did you come to All Nations?
So actually, it's a whole story that comes.
Fits into
that
that.
fits into this. So it's actually one of my pastor's daughter in France.
Yeah.
She was a student at All Nations before, and now she's serving in Laos. And
Okay.
so they actually recommended All Nations, like go to All Nations. I was like, okay, cool, let's go. But so let's go back. So mission, I actually didn't know what mission was before, because I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't know what mission was. I didn't know what missionary was, missionaries and things like that. I didn't know any of those things. But so I knew about mission in July 2022, when I had the opportunity to go to Thailand for the first time, to go and preach the gospel. That's all I knew about it. I didn't really focus on what mission was, but I knew that we were going to go to the cities of Chiang Mai and Bangkok and preach the gospel, and that through distributing food and helping them and knowing the culture and all of those things. But I didn't really use the word mission, because to me it was just, I was just burning for Christ. I was like, I'm going to preach the gospel. That's all I wanted to do. And then after that, when we were able to preach the gospel to those people, to the unreached, because it was a group of people that had never heard about the gospel before, and when you shared the gospel to them, their eyes just lit up. Like they were happy they woke up that morning to hear the good news of Jesus, to hear the truth. And so seeing those lives transformed by the power of the gospel from France all the way to Thailand, I was like, I want to do that my whole life. I want to be able to do that, Lord. I want more of that. I want to experience more of that. It wasn't easy at all. There was a whole spiritual thing, and it wasn't easy all
Were
the
you
time.
equipped though? Were you equipped prior to that trip, or not really?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was kind of like a discovery mission trip.
Okay.
I guess that they were kind of like, okay, this is for you to discover what mission is about and what it's like to go to another country, to another culture, and introduce the gospel to another culture. So we kind of just did with what we knew. I think there were good and bad. There was good and
The
bad.
answer is always Jesus.
Exactly that. That was literally. But it was really an amazing trip. With all the ups and downs of it, it was an amazing trip because Jesus was proclaimed and Jesus was preached, and that's something that spoke to my heart. I was like, I want to do this more, and so I said that to the Lord, and so that's July 2022. Comes December of 2022 of that year, I was convicted that I wanted to go into mission. I knew a little bit more about it, of the fact that going from one place to another to preach the gospel. So I knew a little bit more about it, and I said to God, I want to know more about this. I want to share the gospel, know you, and make you known to the ends of the earth. And so the 30th of December, I tell God, because I was in my English studies at that point. I was in my last year, actually, and I was convicted I didn't want to continue that. I really just wanted to serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And doing that English degree didn't take me anywhere near to going into mission. And so 30th of December, I tell God, I'm stopping this. But I don't want to start my year of 2023 not knowing what I'm going to do. So I need you to tell me exactly, clearly what I need to do. I give you one day. And you have to tell me exactly what I need to do. And you can do whatever it is that you want. You can take me wherever it is that you want to take me.
Wow.
But I will go. But I give you one day. But I give him all, like, you can do whatever you want, but I give you one day. And that was kind of a bold prayer.
Very
like,
bold.
honestly, prepare the prayers
Wow.
you pray for. Because
Wow.
I didn't expect it to be answered this quick. The next day,
Wow.
actually, God did it. The next day, I received an email from a very close, a close person to my heart. And she sent me, she's an unbeliever, and she sent me an email saying, Madagascar needs Jesus. Madagascar needs salvation, and the people in Madagascar, you know how to speak English, so you should teach them the Bible in English. And Madagascar needs salvation. And I was just shocked. I started crying because I was like, okay, so this is God. I couldn't ask for anything
Wow.
clearer, you know,
Wow.
as a calling from someone who doesn't believe in the
Wow.
Lord, and coming from someone that I really admire. So it meant a lot coming from her. And so God kept his word. He did it in a day, and I was like, okay, yes,
That's
here I am,
awesome.
Lord. That was my.
Do you know
here
what
I
I'm
am, Lord.
thinking? That's a really cool story, Mia. We all shared a little bit about all the positives. You know, when God speaks something that you want to hear, it's really easy for you to receive. So, for example, you prayed, Lord, I want to go on a mission. I'll go anywhere. Your heart was ready, and boom, the Lord answered the next day. This is what you know. It's very positive.
Yeah.
But when I want to hear from you guys, what happens or has ever happened with you when God gives you a word or He speaks to you, and it's not positive, and it's not good, and it's not pleasing, you know, it's tough, it's rough.
Yeah, for sure.
It's uncomfortable.
Exactly, uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable
It's a
to
good
hear.
word.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a story comes to mind. I think when you're following the voice of God and the call of God, I think life will be difficult. I mean, if we read about, if we read in the Gospels of the life of Jesus and his disciples, I mean, they didn't have it easy. You know, they were always on the road. There was no sort of sense of like security, like there's that element of living by faith, as you mentioned, like or just not not having money. Like all these things, I think you will experience that. But I think for me, one of the more difficult things in hearing God's voice is often He's going to tell you what the right thing to do is, and you're not always going to be wanting to do that. I think for me recently, like I had like a bit of a spell of time where I just wasn't really living in intimacy with God, and you know, many things had happened in my life that I just let that get in the way of my relationship with Him. And it took a really good friend to really be praying for me and to be hearing for God on my behalf, to then come up and be like, you need to repent, you need to change, you need to come to Christ and bring that stuff to Him, and change your life, you know, let Him change your life. And like that's a difficult thing, like you know, to be hearing that, that you're, to realize that you've been living off track, and now to change that and the consequences of that, and you know, the difficult conversations you need to have with people and the apologies that you need to give. But even though it's really difficult, like when you do follow, when you do obey, like the reward, the outcome is so positive. You know, these relationships being restored, your relationship with God being restored, the sense of peace that you have, like that difficult step of doing the right thing, then leads to like all this fruit of great joys and great pleasures. Of really,
and I forget that those moments we also feel like the grace of God upon us,
sustained you,
undeserving, you know, undeserving grace of God,
for sure.
That's great. No, it's a good one.
I definitely experienced that as well. I think so when I got the calling for Madagascar, it's actually not the country I expected, because I was born there but I didn't grow up there. So being called there, I felt like kind of a fraud, because what do you mean I'm going to go to Madagascar? I didn't grow up there. I know the culture without knowing the culture. I know the language without really knowing the language. I know the people without really knowing the people. So I was really kind of angry at God. Actually, I was like, why are you sending me into a place I feel like I'm not supposed to be there, and people are gonna think like, who does she think she is? You know, growing up in the West and then like coming here with all of her
wanting
knowledge.
to teach us.
Exactly that. And I just felt like so. And also, on top of that, it was Madagascar is a poor country, so it's losing a lot of your comfort.
Yeah.
I've lived in the West for a lot of my life, where I had everything and I had a happy home and everything was given to me. So praise the Lord for that. But then now, God calls me into this uncomfortable situation, environment, and I'm just like, why? Why there? And so, I think I was really scared in that, but then I understood that that is what God would have done. That is what Jesus would have done. He left that uncomfortable, he left that comfort zone to go into the uncomfort. That's how he did for us, and that's what he kept on doing in the Gospels, where he would invite the poor, the rich, the marginalized, the women, everyone. And I think that's how you kind of store up treasures in heaven. That's what it means to store treasures in heaven. It's to open your heart to those who have never heard the gospel before in those uncomfortable situations, and get out of your uncomfort zone for them to find life, for them to find their comfort in Christ. And I think that was my piece. It was, Madagascar does need Jesus. They actually, they've heard about Jesus before, but they don't have that relationship with God. And it's a privilege to be called by God to share the gospel to people who are seeking that. I think I lost my train of thought, but
no, but that's usually what we're on. It's that's amazing, guys. It's really amazing. I think for me, it's funny I asked that because I'm going through that moment right now.
Well,
you know, when you don't want to be doing what you're doing, sort of thing, and you know, or you want to be doing something else that you really feel that God's called you to do, but you sense from God, no, it's not the time yet. And then you're stuck in the desert, you know, and which is great. To be stuck in the desert is great, you know, after a couple of days. But when days become months and months becomes years, it's rough. You know. And it's, you know, and for me lately, I've been really trying to understand. And it's funny because when we go into that zone of not getting what we want, we go into the complain mode, or the grumbling mode, you know. And I think that's why the Lord's taken me back to read the word of Exodus lately, and you see all the grumbling of the people, and all the delays that cause in their lives, and the Lord is speaking to them, and they don't want to listen. It's just grumbling, it's just complaining, and all that. And the Lord's been taking me into this journey. And Filipe, stop. You know, and it comes to a point where it's not you comes that it's not about me. Sometimes we think it's all about us. It's about our ministry. It's about what God's going to do through me. It's about, you know, how God's going to use me. But really, you know, God's really interested in changing you. As much as He's in using you to change people, you know, through His Holy Spirit. But it's changing you, changing your heart. And I was going for a run this morning, and I was listening to a podcast, and the guy was saying exactly that. He's talking about before you even step out to go into mission, you know, God needs to work in your character, in who you are. Because if that doesn't happen, how are you going to go completely broken? How is the broken going to fix broken?
Exactly.
And I think, you know, there's some points of our lives where God takes you to this desert, and it's rough and it's tough, but it's really to shape you and prepare you for what He really wants to do. Not just through you, but in you. You know, and that whole thing sort of works together.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. Like, I think of this time on board the Logos Hope. I joined in Brazil in 2019.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. And, you know, we had 6 months of normal ministry and ship life, and then all of a sudden COVID hits, and we're locked on the ship for 121 days and can't leave, and then it's sort of like another 2 months of like slowly opening up and slowly doing ministry. You know?
Like you're there to do ministry with the people that are there, but suddenly there's no people.
Suddenly there's no people, and we're just working our normal jobs on the ship, you know, to sustain the ship. People cleaning, people working in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I was a deckhand, so I was, you know, wire brushing the deck, and you know, just the countless hours I spent working and, you know, breaking my back to like clean the ship, and thinking, Lord, like, I thought I was called to be a missionary, you know. Like in
Preach
those
the
moments.
gospel.
Yeah, like what am I here for? And
Yeah.
it's exactly that. It's to be refined, for that character to become more and more like Christ, for our minds to be more and more on heaven. And you know, when we did open up, I like one of the first ports where we fully started to engage more, and we could just see the fruit of that experience of ship's company becoming more mature in Christ and investing in our relationship with God. And yeah, the results were that other people could better see the love of Christ. They could see that we were serving Him, and we were there for Him and Him alone, you know. So I think that was similar, sort of. That's just to continue your thought, but
guys, you know, I think we've got to wrap up. The talk is amazing. But I'm not sure if people want to listen to us for 2-3 hours. Are we that engaging, Nate?
I don't know. Hey? Maybe a few more whoops and we'll be getting there.
What about those nice socks, mate?
Cheeky
You mind
socks.
What does he have
them?
today? It's burgers.
It's burgers and
Burgers
chips.
and milkshake, chicken
And
milkshake,
chips.
I reckon.
Yeah, that's nice socks.
So
I go
spice
for
it up.
the
Always.
Jesus sandals.
Oh yeah.
Always
Looking
more like him.
on holy ground.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. But I mean, as we always do in the podcast, how can we today inspire our listeners in our topic today, which is literally hearing from the Lord? Maybe give a practical tip. I think we did share a couple of experiences that we've been having. But I don't know. Maybe give a Bible verse.
Oh, yeah.
Start thinking, mate, because I've put you on the spot.
On the spot.
But you know, it's something that can inspire people, that they can leave thinking about, okay, you know what, I'm not the only one, the odd one out here. You know, or maybe the Lord is speaking with someone right now about their calling, you know, or maybe the Lord is just speaking about their family, or just something happening there. But how can we then help people and inspire them in that sense?
You want to kick us off?
The ladies first, Nate.
Oh, what?
I think the theme of this whole podcast is hearing God's voice. So I think it's that intimacy with God first, is allowing God to speak to you, and allowing yourself to listen to Him and sit still, and just surrendering your thoughts, your will, your understanding to God first and foremost. That relationship with God is what will be the foundation of any ministry, any calling, anything else that happens after. I think it's that intimacy with God. So once you have that intimacy with God, the Lord will also pour in you His desires, the desires of His heart, His calling, what He wants to do through your life, through your gifts and talents as well. And then with that, you take it to people. People also are tools used by God to pray with them. Actually, pray with them. Find people to intercede with you. I think that's been a really big testimony for me. And trust God that He who calls will surely sustain. That's kind of been the recap of my whole life, is that it's nothing done by your own strength, but it's all God providing. That's how I came to All Nations. That's how He opened all of these doors, financially, spiritually, mentally, relationally. Like, He provides and sustains you as you go, and as you continue to trust in Him, and as you keep your heart open to Him as well. So God. The answer is Jesus.
Always Jesus.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Just
But
1, 2, 3, go.
I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. Do you know why?
Why?
Because sometimes I feel like I wake up in the morning and I don't want to pray.
1, 2, 3.
And I don't want to engage there that moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just being real. It's just really being real.
Yeah.
And I feel like the 1, 2, 3 tactic, like 1, 2, 3,
Just
let's
do it.
Just do it. Let's
do
just
it.
pray, Lord.
Start
I'm here.
small, do
I
it
don't want to
small,
be
but-
here. Just be
yeah.
very honest, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we over spiritualize things, thinking that we got to be this holy
Yeah.
being that's going to come in God's presence. And of course, God called us to be holy.
Mm.
But I do feel like, you know, we live in a real world, and we are sinful people, and it's real. We have real feelings that some days it's not. How does Jill say it? She has an expression here at college. As Jill says, I forgot now. Oh, glittery, sparkling, and you know, it's not just glittery, sparkling.
Yeah.
It's the real deal.
It's
It's,
raw,
it's,
it's-
yeah,
yeah.
it's the raw
Yeah.
you know, decision of I'm going to stick with this because I believe in it, and I'm going to do it, and I need to come before the Lord, and I
Yeah.
need to be equipped by the Lord.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think that for me, that's where I am at the moment. It's really just coming before Him. No matter how I'm feeling, I've got to go before Him.
Yeah.
And the 1, 2, 3, okay, I've got to pray right now. I've got to take some
Yeah.
time off to pray. Boom, pray. Just pray. Just talk to the Lord. Talk to the Lord. Speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, as you're walking, just go and speak.
Exactly.
So I would say that, you know, you're not alone. I think we all go through the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And the Lord really wants to speak with us. You know,
Mm.
we just got to be ready to listen.
Yeah.
And I think listening like implies not just absorbing information, but really like letting that express itself through your life,
Yeah.
living it out.
Actively
You know,
listening. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why throughout the whole Old Testament you hear in
Mm.
the scripture, "Hear, O Israel,
Yeah.
listen to my voice." You know, and that listening implies a sense of living it out. And I
Mm.
think for me in
Yeah.
this season, I would probably want to encourage people to not just hear God's voice, but to you know obey. You know, read the scriptures and obey the scriptures. Do the difficult thing, because it's the most rewarding thing. Because it's the
Yeah.
thing that Christ is calling us to do.
Mm.
And in following that, we'll find the greatest treasure. We'll find the greatest joy, because we're following the one who
Yeah.
is pure joy, who is pure love, who is just the greatest treasure we could ever find.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Guys, it was awesome. I think it was
Yeah.
great.
It's
Nice little
so
chat.
cool.
That was a great
What a
chat.
privilege.
What's the handshake that you do in your generation?
In our generation.
It's
There's no
the
handshake.
good old 1, 2, 3.
Oh, you left me.
That's
you
it.
Left me, you left me on hanging.
That's it.
All right, Mia.
The little Brazilian handshake.
Yep. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we were able to, speak truth here, speak what's real, what's raw, about hearing God. I just hope this podcast this episode inspired you. And this was the Old Nations podcast. Whoop, 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 whoop. And we'll see you in the next
See you in
episode.
the next episode, guys.
See you guys.
Ciao.